As you might have heard, we're going to start our discussion with the master plan for football development, the 10-year master plan for football development in Nigeria. We have a number of guests, and then let me start by introducing, Alhaji Ibrahim Galadima, the chairman, Presidential Committee on Football. He was also the former chairman of the defunct Nigerian Football Association, NFA. He is joining us from Kano via Zoom. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, sir.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much. We're also expecting, Jacob J.J. Oyokale, a sports analyst who might have been held somewhere, somehow, but expecting him any moment he comes in. He will join us right here in Abuja studio. Kirian?
All right, and also with us via Zoom from Lagos is Honorable Ayo Omidira, member, House of Representatives, 2021 to 2019, first woman, a Nigerian woman to serve on the FIFA committee and FIFA organizing committee for under 20 and under 17 Women's World Cup 2006 to 2012. Good morning, and we're glad to have you join us on the show today.
Good morning.
All right, and I'm also expecting to have one of our football analysts and the person of Dr. Mike Enahoro, who will be with him as we make progress in this conversation. Yusuf.
Okay, you're welcome once again. Let's go straight to the point and then have whatever we could about this 10-year master plan for football in Nigeria. Let me start with Ibrahim Galadima. Ibrahim Galadima, you are the chairman, Presidential Committee on Football, and then, of course, a former chairman of the defunct NFA, Nigerian Football Association. For 6-7 months, you've been working on this document, and I recall vividly, of course, over a dozen, sporting organizations and institutions and clubs submitted their drafts and suggestions and recommendations for you to work on. And there you are, by Tuesday, I think precisely, you were able to present a report. Through the minister that is, present the report, the 2-volume report to the president. Tell us, before we delve into what is in the report, what were the submissions all about in the first place?
Thank you very much. I'd like to appreciate inviting me to talk on this issue. Let me start by outlining the 4 core areas in terms of reference which were given to this committee. First of all, we'll have the legal framework to look at the legal status of football administration in the country. Secondly, we also have the issue of support structure, look into the governance as well as the issue of administration of football in the country. Third, we have the professionalism, talking about leagues, club licensing, and professionalism in football. And lastly, we have the issue of sponsorship and funding, which is also very critical. These are the 4 areas that were given to cover, and we did this as much as possible by inviting people to come and talk to us on these different subjects. And that's what formed the basis of the committee, of the report being submitted, Mr. President.
With that, as you studied those reports and then those recommendations and the areas you've just mentioned, did you see them as really, strong stakes in what you wanted to do, given the fact that Nigeria's football prowess declined over the years, over maybe 10, 15 years ago, when we were just really ranking tops in the world, about maybe being the fifth fifth footballing nation, I must say, in the world then, and it declined down. That I think that informed the inauguration of your committee and the submissions being made. These areas you mentioned, have they really captured the reasons why we went down lane? We declined in footballing as a nation?
Yes, of course. First of all, let's talk about the position taken by government. Mr. President did mention the position of football in the lives of Nigerians. Number 1 sports in the country, the passion people have for the game, and therefore, out of concern of the recent developments in the sector, government decided to look into the issues. Of course, like I said, various stakeholders were invited to talk, ranging from players, former players, that is Players Union, the state AFAs, even the NFF itself was invited to come and give us some talks. The leagues were also invited. Even the Bureau for Statistics was invited to come and give us some data. So all this were put into the report, and of course, Nigerians are very much worried about recent developments. First of all, like you mentioned, the decline in the fortunes of the game in the country, and secondly, the quarrels, the kind of misunderstandings and the mistrust among the stakeholders in the four parties in the country is giving people a lot of concern. And it is our hope and prayer that this report will help and assist the NFF in shaping the future of football in the country, because we need to give them every support for them to do well and improve the sector.
All right, we'll definitely return to you because you've raised a number of points there. I'll be more concerned, really, gentleman and lady, the fact that my colleague was talking about how we dwindled all of a sudden. But we also should recall the fact that we have not really had issues, with what football development is all about. We've always had issues with had football administration generally. We've had laws, regulations that have been guiding all these football organizations in Nigeria, but we have always gotten it wrong when it comes to proper administration or running of a football organization. But before we continue, let me first welcome Jacob J.J. Oyekala. We've barely introduced him. He just joined us now. Oyekala is a great sports analyst. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Oyekala is back home anyway because he has been with us all the while.
Exactly. Okay, now let's bring in Honorable Ayo Omidiro. You have gained experience over the years, having been part of a FIFA committee and FIFA organizing committee for under 20 and under 17. Before we go into the issue of the plan which has been presented, we have had plans in the past. I want you to share with us what will be your consideration of what must have gone wrong in the highest echelon of football administration in Nigeria over the years. So, of course, my colleague and I have raised some of its issues that we've had, concerning the challenges of NFF and what have you, that, of course, has become perennial. All right. So what is your concern with respect to what actually led to the issue of developing a new master plan for football development in Nigeria?
Thank you so much. Football, as the #1 sport in Nigeria, a sport that every Nigerian is passionate about, both men and women, has been run, I think, anyhow, because for quite some time now, people just put their own ideas on ground, and they see how it works. But we have been able to say, look, we need a proper structure for both male and female football. And that is the main thing that this master plan is about. We have tried to put a sort of a minimum standard for running of the sport. We have checked through the mistakes of the past. We had looked at some of the answers proffered by some of the committees put together in the past. We have spoken with those who are running the game now. We had meetings with the league administrators. We had meetings with Youth Sports Federation of Nigeria. We took advice from all sectors just to ensure that what we put on ground now will last us for a long time. And we know that as we implement, there will be one or two additions and subtractions, because football is a game that evolves and it's not static. And once things go a certain way, we try to also move in that direction. So we did not dwell too much on what is wrong. We tried to proffer solutions.
But just for clarification, you said, all of said, I mean that, you have preferred solution in this document. But most Nigerians will also be concerned with the fact that we have always had good documentation of things we want to do, blueprint they call it, and the other master plan that we have always put in place, not just in football, but in other sectors of our national life. But what has always continued to exist is poor implementation of this. NFF, for instance, should have been an establishment that must not have anything much to do with government. But in Nigeria, if government removes its hand from NFF, it will totally collapse. There is no internal methodology adopted by NFF administration to even stand by on its own, like it's done in other nations of the world. So these are also part of the problems that have been inhibiting the success of that establishment. We'll return to that. But let's bring in Oyakele here to share his views on what has happened over the years with the running of football in Nigeria and the necessity for a new master plan.
Thank you for having me. Basically, when you have a child born and the child starts sitting down, there will be a sort of euphoria from the parents, and the child start crawling. You will be happy, then learning how to walk. But when it gets to a certain time, the child is supposed to begin to run and the child is still crawling, then there is a problem. I think that is the simple analogy of what happened to Nigerian football. We have been growing as in age and number, but the development got trapped somewhere. That is because if you take a critical look at Nigeria as a whole, before now, 30 years back, even 30, 40 years back, you have school sports. That's the grassroots. When you talk about the Nigerian league, you and I will agree the kind of assembly of people that go to watch the Nigerian league. How many are there in the stands today? What is the standard of Nigerian league? What is the financial reward pattern for the players? So a lot of things went wrong. Unfortunately, the administrators too never really helped matters. So looking at that, gradually our football starts dwindling, but we felt we don't know because of one pocket of success here and there, but it has started dwindling. For example, if you look at it, Nigeria still ranks as the best nation when it comes to the under-17 because we have won unprecedented 5 under-17 World Cup. But has it translated to any success? Even at the next cadre, we've never won the under-20 World Cup. We had one Olympics, and going to the World Cup, we have never crossed to the quarterfinal stage. Why this? Because when players win under-17, most of them feel they are on top of the world. The age issue, put it aside. How many of them go back to the Nigerian league? How many of them are being given time to fully develop? Because having potential is one. Realizing that potential and maximizing it is another thing. Again, talking about administration, there must be a deliberate plan for you to develop.
Before you talk about administration, let's exhaust that, on that 17 issue.
Okay.
We've been making strides and getting medals. And what we think in other climes in other countries, when you have a team like this, they are supposed to have been kept and nurtured to move up to the 20 and even graduate to the higher level and become, as you move on, as they move on, they become so much acclimatized to each other, knowing each other, and become like a family. It's not going to be difficult for any coach anyway to get them through to victory. What has been the problem in that? Is it the age issue? Has there been problem with that? Or is it the administration? Why has it been like that?
Now, in those days, there is what you call the Nigerian football culture. But over time, it was eroded. And thereby, any player that plays in the under-17, the next thing that runs in their mind is how to leave the shores of this country, whether to a remote league, whether to a league in Vietnam, even in Africa. At the end of the day, they just go into obscurity. And some of them, as we talk about good football structure, there have been no proper plan to really keep these players and develop them. As a matter of fact, if they are even making a leap, which is a wrong one, to a club, for example, that would not really avail them that opportunity to play, there must be this sort of guidance that after 6 months, if you take a template of German, English, Spanish player, for example, when a player they see as a prospect is in a club and is inactive for half a season, 6 months, they try to withdraw him, seek for a loan for him to move to another club. That is because being inactive for months can really affect the growth of that player. But in our own case, the moment a player moves to a club, whether he's playing or not, there is nobody that cares. The administrators have little or nothing to do, and there must be a department to do this monitoring, aside even the national team coaches that will really monitor these players. There used to be a player, Kelechi Nwakali, at the under-17 level. The guy was like a wildfire. As a matter of fact, after the under-17 in 2015, which Nigeria won, he signed for Arsenal Football Club. But where is this boy now? He's languishing in the second division of Spanish League. If there is a deliberate plan to really develop this player, he was the captain of that team, the captain of the Victor Osimhen that is shining now, the captain of Chukwueze, the captain of Ejuke. Nwakali was their captain and a very good talent at that.
Okay, I think in the course of the program, we will discuss the issue of football management of football stars. You know, that's another very specific and special area. You know, where some good players also being short minded. You know, they're not really paid what they're supposed to pay. Some of them are being cheated, you know, by the football managers that they hire. So what has happened to Wakali or the agents that they hire may have been from his agent, you know, who also organized him being signed by Arsenal when Arsenal was not prepared to use him, right? Because the process is not just signing, but how prepared is the team bringing you in to put you in their squad for you to be noticed? You may be a good player, but if you're not featured, definitely nobody will know that you have the skills. Now, it says languishing in second division in a club in Spain. Yeah. All right. So
let me quickly bring you up to date. Just as Kelechi was signed, Itaiwo Awoniyi was signed. But a Nigerian was involved. That's ex-international Sheyi Olofijana in Awoniyi's transfer. And when they saw he couldn't get a work permit, they worked for him to get a loan move. The second one was not working. They never gave up. So it's a two-way thing, the manager and the player themselves.
Okay.
The player themselves must be ready to work.
All right. Now, Alhaji Ibrahim Galadima, let's bring it in one more time. Talking about what has been submitted and what Nigerians now look forward to if it's properly implemented. You are former chairman of the defunct NFF, so you understand the running of that football body. In terms of implementation, would you think that that's something that Nigerians need to learn, or the stakeholders in the football industry that need to learn to be able to manage NFF as a football organization? Is there, preferred solutions as to how it could be managed? One, the issue of hiring coaches for different strata of or category of football, from under 17, under 21, under 23, and of course the national team. Should that be a rule that indigenous coaches should be given an opportunity, or are we going to continue to rely on hiring foreign coaches, which has not really done well, in terms of promotion of Nigerian football across the globe? What are those new things that we are going to find in this new document, and how implementable are those solutions profiled in the document?
Well, first and foremost, let me start by saying the legal framework is key in whatever we do, because right now, as we are talking, the status of the NFF itself, as it's called today, is very much in doubt, because you have the Act, the 2004 NFA Act, has been, it's made some efforts in trying to streamline that to have the NFF bill. And for many years now, that has not been done. The National Assembly is working on that. Unless you're able to come up with a legal document which will now give the legal status to the Federation, the issue of legality will still be hanging. Secondly, the issue of coaching, I think it's, to me personally, I don't have any quarrel with whoever comes in to coach the Nigerian players, so long as he's capable, whether white or Nigerian. But I think more support should be given to Nigerian coaches who have the capacity. But we cannot do that unless we develop their skills to meet up with international standards. And that's why the National Institute for Sports and other similar bodies can be supported to provide the technical know-how to these coaches, so will be able to impart that knowledge to the players. I think what is important, like Jacob was saying earlier on, is for us to go back to the basics. We had left the culture of football when we had the school sports, when we had the primary, secondary school levels, local government levels. Right now, we have almost forgotten these sectors, and we're always talking about the top. And this, I think, has been the main of Nigerian football. We have to go back and see how we develop. It has to be from bottom up. We cannot build a house from the top. We have to start from the base. And this is why the pyramid we're advocating this report is for us to go back to the local base, from the local governments, from primary schools, secondary schools, organized like youth sport should be encouraged. So we'll be able to have age group tournaments. But I think sincerity and even having putting forward players with the right ages is also key. But I think above all, the issue of funding, like we said in our report, is very important. Unless you're able to secure the confidence of sponsors, nothing will actually work. Because right now, as we're talking, there have been a lot of misgivings, a lot of concerns coming from people with regards to how such funds have been handled. This is why you find that every burden is now placed on the shoulders of government. The Minister of Sports was talking this week about government giving 15 billion naira to the NFF over the last 7 years. And people are saying it's a very mean amount. Yes, granted, that could be mean. But again, people are forgetting that we have not even talked about grants coming from FIFA, from CAF, from sponsors. The recent developments of the ITO Cup, which is supposed to be the most glamorous, the most historic tournament in the country, has now been wasted. So that as we are talking now, there is even no ITO Cup proceedings going on, which I think is very sad. Our calendar has not been very standard. We have not been able to meet the standards of CAF in terms of keeping to the calendar. And therefore, this is why we have always been having some summer soaps. So unless we're able to get all this together, and then above all, get the right people who have the right mentality to come back with that culture. Unless we do that, I think we'll not be able to go anywhere.
Let me just hang on a little bit, Alhaji Ibrahim Galadima. Can you be a little bit specific and more direct now, talking about grassroots development of football in Nigeria? Going back to the basics, as you alluded to, is one of the ways to do that. But we can't just go back 20 years or 30 years and then take what was obtained then and then think we can fix it now in the 21st century as a solution to our problems. I'm just talking about specifics here. What exactly is contained in this document 10 years from now about grassroots development of football in Nigeria? Maybe that could go a long way in telling us what will be done differently as it used to be when, rather in our heydays in sports of football.
Well, one thing about this committee's assignment, well, I'm not saying we're the first committee to be set up to look into this issue. I had the opportunity of serving in some committees, 2 or 3 in the last 20 years or so. Vision 2020, the Media Committee in 2001. I had the privilege of serving in these committees, and all these are proper solutions on how to move Nigerian sports forward. But this particular one is about football. And they are talking about grassroots. You have to go back to we have to encourage education and sports. That means we have to bring back PHE in our schools. Right now, PHE is almost not there in our schools. And therefore, unless you're able to introduce that for the kids to grow up, get involved in sports at that level, the culture will not be there. So graduating from primary schools to secondary schools up to the tertiary level, I think will go a long way in producing the stars we need. Of course, our future should be built on the age group tournaments. And this is why we have not been able to get right. Academies have been spreading all over the country, but unfortunately, they are not being regulated. So you have to also regulate the academies to ensure that they work within the ambits of the laws governing the game in terms of avoiding setting up the academies purely for commercial purposes, not giving attention to the production of talented players. Nigeria is blessed with talents, and like Jacob was saying, we're ruling the world in under 17, under 20 at some point, but unfortunately, we all came down from that level up to almost to nowhere now. And even women in football now, we have seen the encouragement that is coming up in terms of women football. So all this, I think, are good signs that Nigeria can do it. It's something which is doable. What is important for us to ensure that we put the nation first above any personal consideration.
Thank you. Let's go back to Honorable Ayo Omidjiro here. Well, quite some points raised. So you have listened to other guests talking about grassroots development of sports. We will talk about primary school sports. We were in primary school. We were playing even lawn tennis, volleyball, basketball. At the primary school level,
yes.
Right? And at secondary school level, of course, is a little bit higher. Right, those days in high school, the school competition is a very serious competition between two schools. They usually celebrated and what have you. And of course, as rightly pointed out, we raised some good number of players, from school games. What is the Christian Chiku, Imokala, and all of them? They're all from high schools.
That's a critical question. How many schools now have
the
Ministry of Education have to cooperate with that of sport.
This is another topic.
The PHE thing being brought back.
Because you just have one-story building that is a school.
Yeah.
No playground.
What is the regulation for approval of primary schools, secondary schools? Even private universities these days, some don't even have a 5-a-side football field.
That's topic for another day because it's a whole lot of issues there. Honorable Omidjiro, are you satisfied with the female football development in Nigeria, and how has this document, captured the development of all strata of female football in Nigeria? Of course, we've just welcomed back the Falcons, who did very well in Costa Rica, beating world nations, Canada and others, France, these are big football nations in the world. We also have the Super Falcons, who also performed very well in their last encounters. Now, what has this document got to say about women football development in Nigeria?
Well, I'm not satisfied at the present state of women football development in Nigeria. If we had been sustaining the impact we had in women football outside Nigeria, by now we should be talking of winning the senior and the junior women's World Cups. However, what we have done as a committee is to make sure that women's football has its right of place. We have put it that every competition that we have for the men, we should also have for the women. From the grassroots, you will see that there are lots of competitions going on, but you will never see a female version of it. If we implement the master plan committee very well, this will no longer be the case. Then we also need to catch them young. The academies we have now are only mostly for male. We hardly have academy for young girls to come and play football, to learn very early. And so that's a major disadvantage. However, I'm still proud to say that women football has been more successful for Nigeria than male football. That is a fact. The way that we are coming down now, when we have very, very competent people who have the willpower to really make things happen, we will come back up. I'm sure of that.
Okay, thank you so much for that comment, and I think you raised a debatable top issue here, talking about women footballers in Nigeria doing more than the men. That can be debated, but that will be a topic for another day. But JJ Oyekale, I mean, it's a whole gamut of problems we have in football. And that informed why this 10-year master plan is coming on board. When we look at issues of, for instance, football structures in this country, and we talk about inadequate funding, and we have government interference and some other issues related to why, football found itself at this level at this time, and why we're even talking right here, right now, and even why the master plan has to come in place. Football structures have been there. They've been in place, but unfortunately there's not been so much, thriving as it were as they were supposed to be. And same goes with funding. Funding comes in and goes, although Galadima said there are funds from FIFA and things like that. I don't know. This master plan, you must have been a stakeholder in it. You must have talked about it. You must have discussed it. These areas, how do you think are they going to be addressed, given this master plan and what it has in stock for it?
Basically, looking at funding, which is the backbone of any institution. It is just for the sporting industry, football by extension, formulate your policy. It is easier that way. Your policy now, it helps to negotiate with most of these foreign investors, multinationals, because if you look at Nigerian market now, it is crowded by foreign foreign nationals, and they cut home our own money, take to their country, from the oil and gas industry to the telecoms industry to beverages, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic. Name them, they are diverse. Even most big supermarket these days are foreign. Some of the TV viewers are foreign. So there can be a policy that will be formulated to really force most of these people that are earning from Nigeria to invest in Nigerian sports. It is not too much to ask of these people. That is because if you take a template...
But is it the practice in other climes?
Definitely.
All right.
There is this gentleman negotiation that will go into it. Like one of the telecom provider in Nigeria sponsors the league in South Africa. Even one of the television providers sponsor a club in South Africa. And they make much more money in Nigeria than they make in South Africa. A beverage drink that sponsors...
the money that is being used in sponsoring those teams in those countries.
I think it's
a multinational, so it goes beyond just having to spend the money here because you get it here.
Definitely, yeah. But they make money here. This is where they make their market. Yeah. So you cannot come here, make money here, and you go without, doing anything. There can even be a little rebate on tax for them so that they invest in this country. In those days, we used to have Julius Berger Football Club. They have a stadium. Niger Dock, they have a stadium, and a couple of them. These are ways to really encourage them. Moscow in Russia that hosted the last World Cup, Moscow, the city alone, have more than 15 stadiums. How many stadiums do we have in Abuja? It is not a thing that only government can do, but there must be, policies set in place, and you can always work together to really achieve this. It is not only funds coming from FIFA and CAF that can do this. Because when you look at football, it is a big industry on its own, a very, very big and massive industry that can even be an employment provider if we really exploit very well. Not only that, it becomes a conveyor belt whereby when you retire, you can become an administrator, or because when I say the industry is big, you have the medical field, you have the facility, those that are to develop facility, the architects, the engineers, then you have the hospitality industry that comes in. Most stadia across the world have hotels and stuff, there's supermarket. So it is encompassing. It is an employment generation industry. If we maximize it very well, at a point in time, it becomes a full industry that will fund itself.
You know, we have to understand the fact that football, just one of the sports, that exists on this planet, is a big-time business.
It can even help to generate in the GDP of the country. In Brazil and Argentina, football is part of the GDP of the country.
Exactly. Ibrahim Galadima, you just listened to Jacob Jeje Oyekala, read out some of the points that he has. I'm more concerned about funding aspect of it, because that is where government usually comes in as far as the running of NFF is concerned. NFF does not have the financial muscle to operate on its own without government interference in funding. In this new document, is there a provision for the football body to have the capacity and capability to get some funds, or engineer some funds by itself, and make it interesting for the private sector to come in and be part of the Nigerian sporting body. And another aspect I'd like you to talk on is the issue of refereeing. I don't know, when I watch some international encounters, I keep hearing names of referees from parts of Africa, and we never can hear a Nigerian referee, even at the junior, under 20, under 17, and all of that. So what's happening? Because if you don't have a good refereeing body in a nation, I'm not sure we're going to have a good footballers, because of course he's the key regulator of football, in a pitch. So what are we doing also in that respect to grow our own referees to compete internationally? That's number two. The final one I'd like you to talk on is the issue of implementation. The president has asked the committee to begin implementing this document phase by phase. What should be the first step to take if you're in the position to implement this document?
Thank you. Let me start with the last point you raised, which I think is key. Mr. President's directive for implementation, I think, is what is actually giving people some relief, because in this committee and other similar committees in the past, concerns have been raised with regards to the political will to implement those reports. And I think by the declaration by Mr. President for immediate implementation, I think that has been put to rest. We are now quite relieved that government is now willing to see to the actualization of this report and see what will come out of it. So I think that is quite important, and I think it's quite reassuring to all of us. Implementation, I think people should appreciate that this committee has now come up with a different approach to implementation. In the previous report committees we had were just making recommendations. But this particular one, the committee had broken the master plan into 3 phases: short, medium, and long term. And some timings have been given. For the short term, we have the 2 years, 2023 to 2025. At least that's the beginning of the plan itself. And the medium will start from 2006 to 2026, 2024, up to the last stage, which will be 2020 up to 2032, which is the conclusion of the assignment. So I think the monitoring and the implementation will not be phased, and then we'll be able to monitor and assess progress we're making in every sector. Going back to the issue you raised about the issue of facilities, yes, Jokba said it. It's very worrisome that when it comes to facilities, you only can boast of maybe only 2 standard stadia that people on CAF would approve for Nigeria, which I think is quite tragic. I can't see how clubs in Europe, other places, will be having standard facilities, and a country like Nigeria will not be having 10 or more of such facilities. This, of course, has to be done with the collaboration and support of the states and local governments. We have to appreciate that some of the responsibilities are not federal government responsibilities. Local governments, for instance, at the state level, all these are within the purview of the local governments and state governments. And therefore, if they now do this at the level of providing facilities in schools, most of the schools now, you can find that they don't even have facilities for sports. And therefore, that has been quite worrisome. The local government level is almost non-existent. So unless you go back and provide the facilities, there's no way skilled athletes in every sector will be able to develop and improve their skills. Therefore, facilities, I think, is key. We have to provide facilities for us. That's why in football, when you see our players getting out of this country to play outside, they come back in a very short time because they're used to modern facilities, modern things which now shape their skills. And therefore, but back here, the absence of these facilities has been a problem. So I think this has been the main issue, which I think will do. But again, like Jacob was saying about the private sector, I quite agree with him that the private sector needs to come in and assist government to pay back to the society what they have done. But again, we also have to take into account the fact that they also need to be assured of the safety, security, and sanctity of their funds, because they are not charity organizations. What they give out is for them to pay back to the society. Therefore, the management of these funds and resources should be given top priority. If a situation where you have a lot of concerns be raised and issues be raised about how these funds have been mishandled, naturally, every right-thinking corporate body will run away from getting in that kind of situation. And therefore, I think trust is very key. We have to build trust with them. We have to build that confidence for them to come and put in their money. And I think, as a reminder, I'm aware of a circular in the country which actually Minister of Sports should try to bid out. And because there are some tax incentives being given to sponsors who come in to put in money into sports, there'll be some relief. Government gives some relief to them. And therefore, government ministry should not be able to get this circular out, publicize it for companies and corporate world to know what also comes back to them in terms of the government support when they put in their money in sports development. Once we do that, I'm sure the sky will be the limit.
Oh, thank you so much, Alhaji Ibrahim Galadima. Ayo Omidiron, Member House of Representatives 2011-2019, first Nigerian woman to serve on FIFA committee and FIFA organizing committee for under 20 and under 17. This document, should have a lot of solutions in it. There's no doubt about that. And Nigerians are waiting to see in the next 10 years what really the solutions would be in order to take Nigerian football out of the woods. The Nigerian football has been developed with a lot of corruption, talking about, bonuses to players that were not paid in good time, talking about allowances that were not paid in good time, of course, some other encouragements. And we all know that football is a passionate, game. The players to do it with passion because that's what they enjoy doing. The players watch it with same passion because it's interesting to do that. And the patriotism that accompanies all this, takes the players to higher level and encourage them. To what extent has this document addressed this issue and serving as a deterrent to to other practices like this that may come along in the administration of football in Nigeria?
Well, the document tried to touch as many aspects of football administration possible. However, the major thing that we have to hold on to is administration. Like Alhaji Galadima has been saying, a lot depends on the people that are in charge of our football. a lot. And if we do not make a conscious effort to put people who are capable, who are passionate, who are transparently committed to giving us this wide chance, opportunity to develop our young people, then no matter what we do, no matter what we put there, we'll just be there for being their sake. So what we need to first and foremost take cognizance of is a conscious effort by all stakeholders to ensure that only those who can make things happen are put in charge of our football. When we do that, all other things will fall in place.
Okay, thank you so much, Ayo. I should throw this back to you because I'm not really so much satisfied. I really just, maybe in 30, 45 seconds, this document, how would it, address this issue I just raised of corruption and, impunity and things like that?
Well, the implementation is key. And for you to implement it, there would be this rapport, understanding and negotiation between the presidency, the sport ministry, and the NFF. And the key thing now is the NFF, the election that is forthcoming has been a bit open now. Other stakeholders can now contest. Unlike before that, it's just the FA chairmen that are avail the opportunity to contest. So now that it's open, ex-international can contest, and again, more questions can be asked. So in implementing it, there must be a direct negotiation, right from the presidency to the sport ministry and to the federation. And they must all come together and understand that we want to develop the country. So the development of the country first before individual ego.
Okay,
thank you.
And we've not been having referees representing Nigeria at the international encounter. So what led to that?
Now, referees, coaches, they themselves need to really train themselves, because it is not the country that is to train them. They need to train themselves, and after training themselves, avail themselves to attend courses, and when the global body see them fit, they will be able to now choose them for global competition. But they need aid again from our own federation to really help them develop. Ideally, every national team is supposed to be attached with a FIFA licensed referee. These are ways to encourage and upgrade them too.
Oh, thank you so much, Jacob J.J. Oyekai, sports analyst. You've been part of us. I hope you're going to continue to be part of us.
Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure. A very big thank you also to Alhaji Ibrahim Galadima, Chairman, Presidential Committee on Football. He was the former chairman of defunct Nigerian Football Association. It's our pleasure, sir. And same also goes to Ayo Omidiron, Member House of Representatives 2011-2019, and first Nigerian woman to serve on the FIFA committee and FIFA organizing committee for under 20 and under 27. It's our pleasure for, we feel very happy really having you on this program this morning. Thank you. We will now call it quits on this very segment talking about the 10-year master plan. We'll take a break and come back to talk about fashion, 2022 thread show and exhibition. So,